Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Figure Feedback Podcast. I want to thank everybody for being here today to watch or listen to this. And for today's episode, I am going to talk about a subject that was suggested to me in the comment section of the first podcast, and that is how I got into figure collecting. And I thought that would be a really cool topic to sort of talk about. So that's going to be the main theme for this podcast episode. So, kind of just going back to the beginning. When I was growing up, like many kids, I had plenty of toys, which is really just the thing that you did back then. I'm not too sure how many kids these days, especially around 10, 11 years old, actually play with toys. But I did because there was really nothing else to do. There was no internet really to jump on, at least not to do the types of things that we do now. So I played with a lot of toys. And a lot of kids did. And I actually have with me, and I know I wanted this to be more audio centric, but just for this one time, I thought it'd be fun if I showed you a couple of my childhood toys that I still do have. So check this out. So this is Spider-Man. I forget what type of Spider-Man this is and what the proper name for him is. And then here is this Carnage figure. These are about, I don't know, 10 inches tall or something. They were made by Toy Biz. And I can probably see if there's a copyright on it. I'm not too sure, but I also have some other ones here. Yeah, so there's Toy Biz ink on his leg. Copyright 1995 from Marvel. And I have a couple others from this as well. I've got myself an Iron Man. I had a Venom that I accidentally exploded from making them fight each other. And I've got a Wolverine as well. There's just a few of the toys that I would play with growing up, but that would be fun to show you. But since all kids pretty much played with toys, I really wouldn't necessarily say that was a collecting thing because I just wanted toys to play with. I wasn't displaying them or anything. So the real collecting came into play in my adult years. So it was after college when I was living on my own. And what kind of got me into it was, strangely enough, YouTube. YouTube seems to just be the center of so many different things that have happened in my life that I've gotten into. So here's the thing. It all started with Lego. And I don't know how I stumbled upon Lego YouTube channels, but I did. And the channel that I started watching, it was called The Brick Show. And Brick Show's not around anymore. I think they ran into some issues with Lego as far as talking about sets that leaked that weren't quite out yet. And I think Lego kind of took it upon themselves to do something about it. And the Brick Show is no more. But at that time, they did a bunch of different reviews on Lego sets. And something about it just caught my interest because when I was growing up, I always thought of Lego to be kids' toys. Kids play with Legos. They're little baby blocks. That's what they do. And I didn't realize that there was this whole other category of Lego sets that aren't just for play, but more for display, more like models. And I saw some of those that they had on display. And I'm like, you made that amazing looking ship or building or whatever, ship, a train from Lego bricks? You can do that with those things? That is so cool. And to me, it wasn't like a toy necessarily. It was sort of like weird pixel art or voxel art, because you could clearly see the brick made structures. But it was just a really cool way to make a model out of things that were very familiar in the real world. So I was watching more and more of their videos, and they would do things like blind bag openings for different series of Lego minifigures. And I thought, I want to try that too. That looks like fun. So I would go to the store and I would buy a few of the Lego minifigures blind bag sets. I think they cost maybe $2.99 each, I think they were. And I would open them up just like they did in their video. I had some ones that I hoped that I was getting. There was ones that I wasn't too fond of, and I was overall just kind of hoping that I wouldn't get duplicates, you know. And I didn't do the whole thing where you feel the bag and kind of get to know the shape of the figure and you're feeling for accessories to see which ones you're going to get. You know, I would just grab them at random, you know, like a lottery ticket and see what I got. And I had fun with that. And as time went on, it just started to progress in the zone of Lego. I think that the like the canon event, if you will, for my Lego collecting came when I decided, based on looking at the Lego review videos from the Brick Show, and then I would also look at uh, Jamg Bricks, who was Lego Jang back then. He changed his name to Jamg Bricks because he didn't want any smoke with Lego, and I totally get it. And he used to look at Just Too Good. They also did a lot of Lego reviews. It was really good, and you know, just others as well. So I came across this DC superheroes Lego set, and it was for Lex Luthor in power armor. And the minifigures that came with it were Lex Luthor, Superman, Wonder Woman, and maybe Aquaman. I'm not too sure about Aquaman, maybe. And I decided I'm going to get this set because I didn't build anything before outside of little minifigures. So I went to Toys R Us in Fayetteville, Georgia, went into the Lego aisle. I picked up that set. I'm like, this is gonna be the first Lego set that I put together. So I took it home. I built it. I was honestly a little bit worried that I wouldn't do it right because even though it's like, oh well, you know, this is kids can do this, but I never did it before, and I'm not really good when it comes to like drawing and you know stuff like that. So I thought that maybe that would hinder me a little bit and I would make it more difficult than it actually was, but it wasn't. So I put together that power armor and I was like, man, this is just so cool. I opened up this bag and it was just a bunch of bricks, little small pieces on the table. And I followed these instructions and look, I've got a green power armor suit for Lex Luthor. That's just awesome. And then the minifigures, they're awesome too. So I continue to watch videos from the Brick Show and whatnot while I'm buying more Lego sets. I'm buying things like this Lego like haunted ghost train type of a thing. You know, I'm buying that. I'm buying sets from franchises that I really didn't know much about at all, but it looked cool. Got this Mandalorian spaceship that is in my garage in a box that was big and it's awesome. And I was buying like these different cars and these houses and like all this stuff. And I would display the minifigures on some shelves that I put up on the wall. And as I was looking at the brick show, one of the guys, his name is I think it was Steven. On his desk, he had a baby Groot. It wasn't a Lego baby Groot. It was just a baby Groot. I don't know who made it. And I was looking at it. I thought, like, that is so cool. It's a baby Groot. I didn't know that stuff like that existed because I really wasn't into like the action figure collecting. I wasn't really keeping track of what was going on. I just thought that it looked cool. And I was like, I would like that little baby Groot too. Wonder what it is and where he got it from. So I just went online and I just type in, you know, like baby Groot collectible, baby Groot toy, you know, whatever, see what comes up and see how much it can cost. And the first thing that came up was a Funko Pop of the baby Groot in the pot, the little potted plant baby Groot. I don't know if that's exactly what Steven had on his desk, but I really liked the way that it looked. And I saw that it was nearby at Toys R Us in Fayetteville, Georgia. It was like $8.99, I think. So I got up, I went to Toys R Us, I found where the Funko Pops were, and I grabbed that baby Groot in the potted plant. But before I left, I decided to take a look around. see what else is over here. Why not? I drove out here. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time in here. Just kind of walk around a little bit. And that's when I started to find figures from franchises that I knew, but I never really thought about whether I could have these physical representations of them in my hands. So I would see like the old NECA TMNT figures from the Eastman and Laird comic books where everyone had the red bandanas. I saw those hanging up and I'm like, wow, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I loved Turtles growing up. They all got red bandanas. This was from the comic book? That's kind of cool. I'm looking around some more and I'm seeing Assassin's Creed figures. Sweet, Assassin's Creed. I played that game. I'm looking around some more. I see Bioshock. I played Bioshock. Big Daddy. Oh, I wish I bought a Big Daddy when I had the chance. Man, that would have been awesome. But, this is what I'm seeing. I was seeing these Mass Effect figures. I love Mass Effect. Mass Effect trilogy is my favorite video game trilogy of all time. Never thought about buying figures from them. I saw there was a Rex there. I saw I saw Shepard. I saw Garrus. I only ended up picking up like one or two. I think it was Rex and in fact, no, it wasn't Rex. It was Grunt. Grunt and Thane. I wish I would have picked up some of the more popular figures from that. But anyway, this is the stuff that I'm seeing as I'm going around. And I'm just becoming more and more fascinated because I'm like, I didn't know that these types of things existed. So I'm going back home and I'm looking on YouTube and I'm looking at toy reviews. I'm looking at reviews for these things that I see in the store. And I'm being convinced that, hey, this is awesome. So I would go back out there and I would pick up these figures, a lot of them from video games that I knew about and I thought would be great to just have on hand, in addition to continuing to pick up the Lego sets and everything. And kind of in between there, the Funko Pop craze was really starting to bubble up, and I got so swept into it. And I was buying pops like all the time. Every time I turn around, there was some Funko Pop from a franchise that I knew and I liked. I'm like, I need to have that pop. I need to have the pop. And I would just collect them so often. I think in total, because you can probably see some back there, but they are by no means the amount of pops I actually have. I've got maybe about 240 of them, maybe more. In fact, when I started getting into collecting the toys, I would also do videos about them, do review videos on them. They're not here on Figure Feedback. They are on my first channel that I still upload to. And that channel was called Jeremy Hill. That's my name. I'll leave a link to the playlist, the toy playlist on that channel. If you want to go back and look at some of my older toy reviews that go back about 9 years, you can check that out. Um, I think I mentioned in the first episode of this Figure Feedback podcast that I decided to take all the action figure and collectible stuff and move it over here because I thought it would be better for that channel if I didn't mix so many different topics together. And since I know that this is something that I'm not going to be walking away from anytime soon, as far as like collecting and stuff, I wanted to give it its own home. And it's worked out pretty decently so far, I think. It's the crazy thing is I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's a podcast. It's what you're supposed to do, right? When I made Figure Feedback and I started uploading videos on it, one thing that I saw that really made me think like, yeah, this was the right thing to do. I would just upload just a regular video of a figure or something, and I would get more views on Figure Feedback at a time where I had maybe about 100 subscribers. I would get more views faster on Figure Feedback than I would on my first channel, which had around 42 to 43,000 subscribers. I would upload these toy videos and they would just be stagnant. Some of them would take off a little bit, but most of them, like 1 to 200 views. But I would bring them over here on Figure Feedback and I would get around 1 to 200 views within less than a week, whereas over there, they would be up there for like a couple of months and would only get to that point. So that kind of let me know, like, yeah, you should definitely stick with figure feedback when you're putting these toy reviews and stuff up. But anyway, um, I started collecting more and more action figures and got turned on to really some of the bigger domestic brands in the space. So we're talking Hasbro, Mattel, um, NECA, Diamond Select, Mezco, the brands that you would be able to find really in Toys R Us, because that was the place to get figures. Jack's Pacific, they had a or have a World of Nintendo line. Love Nintendo, love Mario, all that stuff, and they would always come out with different figures from different franchises. It was Mario, Zelda, Pikmin, let's see, Donkey Kong, all kinds of Nintendo franchises, Metroid, and it was the hunt. It was the excitement of going out to Walgreens, Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, maybe some more exotic place. Maybe you'll hop into a Best Buy, maybe hop into like a Barnes and Noble, or something to try to find these different action figures. Once again, kind of propelled by YouTube and watching other people do hunts, action figure hunts, toy hunts, like P2 Vision. Love that guy. He doesn't do videos much anymore, but man, he was the man when it came to, like hunting toys. He did like a lot of amiibo stuff. There was some pop stuff, for a period of time, but he made the whole thing so exciting and it was motivating. I'm like, man, I want to go out there and I want to get stuff too. And I did toy hunts on my channel and everything. It was great. But everything started building up gradually over time. Funko Pops led the charge for the most part, but really every time I saw a figure that was from something that I remembered or was familiar with, and if it looked cool, I would pick it up and I would put it on display. This larger one right here behind me, I've had that display there for maybe about maybe about 7 years. Got it from IKEA, and it is the main display. It was well made. I think it only cost me like $60 or $70. It wasn't even expensive compared to today's prices. And the DTOFs. I don't know, you probably can't see the DTOFs, but those used to be like the preferred way to display your collection for things that look like really, really cool and maybe expensive or whatever. But even DTOFs these days are just, prices are through the roof. It is insane. Um, but uh, but yeah, collecting toys for me has been kind of like, for one part, capturing nostalgia and trying to hold on to it. The other part was kind of a habit, not really an obsession, but it was the desire to always keep up with what was new, with what was in at the time. Even things that I really wasn't too into, I would still keep up with it. Like when Star Wars started back up again for the new trilogy, the Black Series, people were really wanting to go out to the stores, go to Toys R Us as soon as those figures were available on the shelf. And just, we need to get them. Need to get those new figures. I didn't know really anything about it. I'm not a huge Star Wars person, but I wanted them too. So let me get that Darth Vader with the removable helmet. You can see the guy underneath and all his messed up skin. It's got a cloth cape. I had so much fun collecting these figures. And modern day, the big collection that I accumulated was from McFarlane Toys. McFarlane Toys with the DC Multiverse line came onto the scene. I don't know the exact year. I want to say maybe 2018, 2019, something like that. And just completely took over my entire collection. I stopped with the pops because it got to the point I was like, okay, this is too much. I got too many of these things. I want to start focusing on action figures. So McFarlane came out with the Hellbat suit Batman and Superman Unchained, these big, bulky, awesome looking figures for only $20. They were bigger than Marvel Legends and they looked great. And you can find them pretty much everywhere. I got those two figures. I remember going into Target, it was right before the pandemic hit. I'm like, man, these are just so awesome. And I kept collecting McFarlane's toys. And even though I wasn't big into DC, I would always consider myself, I'm a Marvel guy more than a DC guy. I've got more DC figures than anything else because the DC Multiverse line was just that good. So many different variations of characters that you have seen maybe once or twice, some figures that you've seen many times. But the quality on those figures at that time were just so good for the $20 price point. And then there were builder figures that you can go along with it. Basically, it was my Marvel Legends. There are so many of these DC Multiverse figures on the shelf. If you want to see them, I'm going to leave a card and a link of my collection video where you'll see most of the stuff that's back there. You'll see so many different DC Multiverse figures that I have. And I'll go into it in another episode about why that has also slowed down drastically. And that podcast is going to be about my thoughts of the current state of action figure collecting from my perspective and, just how I'm feeling right now. And I think it's going to shed a light on why the action figure collection is not growing right now and kind of where I'm looking at that in the future. But yeah, that is pretty much how I got into collecting. It started with Lego and it evolved into so many other different things, mostly propelled by YouTube and the algorithm, leading me from Lego to Funko Pops, to me seeing things around the Funko Pops that I'm interested in, going back to YouTube, looking at more figure reviews, learning about different brands, going back out to the store, and it's just a loop and it just keeps going. There was at one point, I'm a wrestling fan, WWE. I like AEW too, but WWE is what I grew up with, and I love WWE. So I started buying the Mattel WWE figures. I really love the belts. Got a decent amount of them on my bottom shelf there. So that kind of just goes into the whole nostalgia thing, that I mentioned before. I would, find the Nation of Domination, 3-pack and pick that up. Oh, I love the Nation. I would see like the old Stardust and Gold Dust figures, and I gave them the Copper Tag Team titles. I remember that moment when they were tag team champions. That was a feel good moment. D-Generation X, Undertaker, all that good stuff. And it's just sort of freezing time in that moment when I first saw those figures or those characters that those figures are based on, and just, having that feel good moment on the inside, and then saying that figure has captured that moment and it froze it in time. And if I can have that figure and keep it, I will also keep that feel good memory. And when I look at it, I'll be reminded of it. So maybe it's just a little tiny bit of that endorphin hit. Hey, you remember the time when? Yeah, I do. That was cool. And there can be a little story with many of the figures that I have. Not all of them, but some of them. The most figures that I have are ones that you could easily find in stores, big box retailers. But there are some that I kind of stepped outside the box a little bit, and they also become some of my favorites. Play Arts Kai line from Square Enix. They make these super exaggerated versions of figures. I've got this Play Arts Kai Robin, Play Arts Kai Hawkman, Play Arts Kai Black Widow, Play Arts Kai Darkseid that basically look like these anime inspired versions of these characters. And sometimes they can get a bit out there, but I like that. And those were more on the pricey side. So instead of spending $20 on a figure, those would cost, depending, I would get them on sale at GameStop. Just lucking out and find them at GameStop for like $60 or something, but they would be more expensive than that at the time. I have from Mezco the first Dark Knight Returns figure that they did from the 112 Collective. I think that was about $70 at that time. That was definitely more higher end, for me. And as much as I would love to have a collection of sideshow statues and Hot Toys figures, I've never really gotten to that point. Though, as I'll kind of talk a little bit about in the next episode of the Figure Feedback podcast, kind of where I would go with that for as far as the Hot Toys things go, and then how the 3D printing almost sort of offsets the lack of buying like sideshow statues. Not complete, because they still look awesome and they're painted by pros and everything, but it helps to get that feeling of having something of that quality without the skill to actually paint it like the pros do. But yeah, I think that about does it. The history of action figure collecting for me. I'm probably going to think of other things that I should have said after I stop recording this. But hey, that's with everything. But I want to know, what's your canon event when it comes to collecting? If you do collect, is it something that you started once you became an adult and you started making money and you started going back and try to recapture all these little time capsules of memories in the forms of little chunks of plastic? Or is it just something that you've always done? You still got an old childhood collection. You've always been a collector at heart. Or maybe you're not a collector. Maybe you just like a few things here or there. Everybody's got a good story, an interesting story to tell. So I want to know, what's yours? Let me know down in the comments. But if you want to find me outside of YouTube, outside of Figure Feedback, on the screen here, I'm going to put some links to where you can find me on 2 social media platforms that I use. It's going to be for Threads. You should get on Threads if you're not on Threads. And Instagram as well. It's going to be threads.net/@JeremyT.Hill. And then on Instagram, it's going to be @JeremyT.Hill as well. My picture is on there, so you see what I look like. You'll know that it's me. And yeah, you can come on over there, give me a follow. Let's chat and or share some pictures, some cool stuff that we have. So that'll do it for this episode of the Figure Feedback podcast. I'm going to be back next week with another episode, and I am planning for that episode to be about the current state of action figure collecting. A lot can happen in a week. Maybe something will change. Maybe it'll be a different topic. But if nothing changes, that's going to be the topic for the next episode. If you got any ideas for any episodes that you want to see, or any questions or whatever that you would like for me to answer in this podcast, also let me know down in the comments, and I shall do it. So thank you all so much for listening or watching this. And until next time, take care of yourselves. I'll speak to you soon.